Hello everybody, welcome back to the Infinicrypt Devlog series. This week I'll be talking about a new system I just added that adds roaming patrols into the dungeon. Now, one of my goals throughout the development of Infinicrypt has been to create this sense of it being a living environment. I like to do that a lot more through the actions the player takes and the events in the environment, rather than through written text in lore dumps, because me personally as a player, I almost never read them. So to give this sense of the Infinicrypt being a living environment, I've decided to make it so that way patrols of the different enemy factions can be moving throughout the dungeon. One really great example of this is that when you clear out a rat warren, it'll actually look for all of the other rat warrens on the entire floor and have a really high chance of creating rat patrols from those areas. And so it almost makes it feel like they're sending reinforcements after one of their bases gets taken out. Additionally, I'm planning on adding rooms that will constantly spawn undead patrols. This also starts to open up the door to new items that let you interact more with the map. Things that let you see patrols moving around in a small radius around you. Stuff that allows you to pinpoint where these patrol spawning rooms are, that kind of thing. So, how does it all work? Well, each room that has a patrol in it will move the patrol from its room to any of the rooms that are currently surrounding it, every single time that you leave a room. So every time you leave a room, all the enemies on the floor begin moving around. If you move into a room that has a patrol in it, it will spawn in the enemies of this patrol. And something I really wanted to make sure wasn't an issue is that when you leave the room, well, the enemies couldn't follow you before. Well, now they can. So if you try to run away from the enemies, they all filter in through the door behind you. It's kind of great when you think you've gotten away and then you start seeing a horde of skeletons pour in through the doors. While most patrols will be spawned during floor generation, additional patrols can show up while the player is exploring. There's a global threshold that shifts around an accumulative patrol score. Clearing rooms and moving between rooms adds to the patrol score, and once that patrol score meets or exceeds the threshold, a new patrol is spawned in a random room. These dynamic patrols can either be zombies, skeletons, or the brand new enemy type, slimes. The blue slimes are resistant to ice damage, and they fire projectiles in a up and down pattern. And the green slimes fire on the diagonals, and they're resistant to poison damage, and their attacks deal poison. They're kind of dumb. They don't follow the player around or even try to hit them. They just kind of move around and do their thing. And part of why I really like these is that they don't really show up unless you've been clearing out rooms and moving around. And I almost think of them as like the dungeon's like living janitors, going around and like cleaning up after all of the battles and kind of absorbing and repurposing parts of the environment. I've also added some new items this week. There are 4 new items for the mage and 3 new items for the rogue. Starting off, we have Arcane Apotheosis. This is a rare item. Whenever you hit an enemy with an attack that deals arcane damage, it'll apply a new debuff called Arcane Film. Arcane Film will amplify all incoming arcane damage to a target by 150%? And on the 10th stack, it will instead multiply the damage by 200% and reset the mage's cooldowns. This is really good if you have a very long cooldown spell that you want to have on the side, and then use Magic Missile to just quickly refresh it over and over again. Next, we have Professional Polarism. This item makes it so if you hit an enemy who is already frozen with enough ice attacks, there's a chance to instantly shatter them and deal their entire health bar. This is incredible. I really like this item, and the sound that it plays when you shatter an enemy is just great. Next up, we have Jaunting Jolts. This item makes it so all attacks that deal lightning damage also apply the Jolted debuff. Whenever an enemy is jolted and they are hit by any attack, there's a 95% chance that they will fire out a static bolt at an enemy within range. And the static bolt also deals lightning damage, so you can kind of get these really nice feedback loop scenarios where bolts are just bouncing everywhere on the screen. And the last mage item, we have Fanciful Flames. This is, in my opinion, the worst of the four, but it still has its uses. Whenever you defeat an enemy that is burning, they'll leave embers on the ground, much like how alchemical fire works currently. Instead of lighting enemies on fire, it just deals straight up fire damage. This can be really good for holding enemies at bay while you take care of other ones, and especially with the new patrols while you're fighting in a hallway, it shreds. As long as they're able to be confined to a really small place, because it doesn't have a lot of area to it. Moving on to the rogue items, I'm going to kind of do all three of these at the same time. So, Ring of Shadows, Smoke Bomb, and Invisibility Cloak all work with the new invisibility condition. The Ring of Shadows, as long as the rogue is outside of the radius of any lights in the room, will be able to go invisible, and it helps you maintain your invisibility while you remain in the shadows. So let's say you have 4 rings, eventually you'll get up to 4 stacks of invisibility before it won't apply anymore. This works really, really good with the other item that I just mentioned, Smoke Bomb. Smoke Bomb makes it so every time you do a normal dash, not the blade dash, you will gain stacks of invisibility. And so, combining these two, you can really quickly get enemies off your tail and reposition if you're in a bad spot. You can't really exploit sitting in the shadows forever because the room attacks come back on and the enemies aren't getting any weaker. But yeah, then we have the Invisibility Cloak. The Invisibility Cloak is a legendary item, and this one makes it so all effects that apply invisibility have increased duration. And so this can cause some really interesting scenarios where you're able to dash, completely move to the other side of the room on just the smoke bomb's duration, and attack, and nothing saw you the entire time. And I really like all 3 of these items. I'll probably keep expanding on the invisibility mechanics, maybe add some sort of like assassin strike that adds more damage if you're invisible, that kind of thing. And that'll do it for this devlog. Again, if you're interested in following Infinicrypt through its development, please consider subscribing and joining our Discord server. Let me know what you think about the new items and the patrols in the comments, and I'll see you all when I see you next. Bye-bye.